It is so important to have a good introduction. You never get a second chance at a first impression. This session is all about having a great start and helping you create the opportunities to share the gospel in a variety of settings. Breaking the ice, building rapport, connecting with people, developing relationship, and learning key communication skills needed to have a really clear presentation. Hopefully you've memorized the introductions and are ready to see how this works. Let's have a look at the 7 principles of the G7 on the first page of your laminated G7. If you're using the app, then keep watching because some of these principles will apply to you too. If you follow these 7 principles, you're going to have a fantastic presentation. Okay, so the first one is to keep the angle of the diagrams optimal. So you need to have it so that they can see it. Now, when you're using the laminated book, there's a diagram page and a text page. So you always got to sit on the side of the text page and have them sitting on the side of the diagram page so they can see it well and you angle it towards them. Second principle is to always keep your pen on the diagram page unless it's moving to the next action. So you want to keep your pen on the page. So whenever there's an action word, you're pointing or circling or underlining or crossing out. If it's in the negative, you cross out, otherwise you're pointing or circling or doing something. But you're just keeping interest in the presentation. So the underlined words are action words. Now text words are capital, bolded and underlined. So you got to have your writing and your talking in sync. So when you're doing it, make sure that you slow down your speech to keep in sync with your writing. Just stretch out the words, perfect, or double it up. So that wholly means perfect. That is perfect. So you're keeping in sync with your writing. Turnover words are at the bottom of the script pages. Now you say these words while you're turning the page. Now that keeps your flow going. If you're using the app, then obviously you don't need to worry about this because you're just reading and tapping and it does it all for you. But with the laminated version, when you get to the bottom of the page, make sure you turn the page as you're saying those words to keep your flow going. Now, next principle is that words in brackets. Square brackets are optional and words in braces are words that they are going to say. You wait for a response. So when you ask a question, don't answer it by saying the words in braces, those squiggly brackets. Let them respond. So if you say, do you know anyone who's entirely perfect? You want them to answer. Don't go, do you know anyone who's entirely perfect? No, neither do I. So, we have a problem and just turn the page. You've got to allow them to respond. Emphasized words are in italics. So they're words that you're going to emphasize. So you don't want to be monotone, but at the same time, you don't want to be too expressive either. You don't want to be really animated like you're in some drama, but at the same time, you don't want to be monotone as you're going through, so it sounds really boring. So the idea with the italics is that it just helps you to emphasize words that are really important to help you communicate. You don't need to remember all of these. We're just doing an overview, and when we come to these, when we're going through the G7, you'll be reminded of these principles. Now you'll notice that there are 2 different starts to the introduction, one for people that know you well and one for those who don't know you. Obviously when you start to break the ice in order to share the gospel with people you don't know, there's more information that you need to provide. If someone randomly approached you, wanted to do something like a survey or something like that, there'd be things for me that I'd want to know, like their name, what organisation they're with, what they want to do, and the biggie, how long is it going to take? Now if people don't provide this information, it's annoying. One day I had this guy knock on my door about 8 o'clock at night. I opened the door and he turns around and goes, "Oh, you are home. Are you with Optus?" Now he was from some phone company selling plans door to door. But what an introduction. He didn't say his name, didn't say what company he's with or what he was doing, just starts asking me all these questions about my phone plan. Now you can imagine that some people would just slam the door or tell him that they're just not interested just because of his approach. Now I felt like doing that, but I wanted to share the gospel with him, of course, so I tolerated and invited him in. But let's not make the same mistake when we're doing our gospel presentation. Now you always want to have your G7 handy to the door for anyone who comes to your house. Hopefully you can see how important this introduction is. It can be the difference between being able to share the gospel or not. And when you're up front and let people know what's happening, they're a lot more likely to go through the gospel with you. For people who don't know you, we give them all the needed information. Our name, who we are, who we're working with, what we're doing, and how long it's going to take. But when you do this with someone you know, you obviously wouldn't want to be using the same approach. I mean, imagine going up to your brother and saying, "Excuse me, can you help me with something? My name's Stuart." I mean, this is why there's two starts, as one size doesn't fit all. And there may be situations where you need to skip over the 10 questions, maybe with someone that you think would be uncomfortable answering personal questions in front of you, or maybe someone who has very limited time. And in this case, you just skip over the square brackets if you're using the Laminate on lines 5 and 7 through to 12. But if you're using the app, you just press skip quiz and it automatically does it for you. Now remember, square bracketed words are optional. So in this case, you would say, all we do is give you the best definition of a Christian you have ever heard. This is also a summary of the message of the entire Bible in 6.5 minutes. It would be great to see what you think of this. And then you're straight into the gospel. Now, if you are sharing with people who don't know you, then there may be times where someone doesn't have much time, and maybe you've done the introduction into the quiz, but they're on a work break, for example, and they say, "I don't have enough time." So you can say to them, "Look, let me just show you the first short version. It only takes 6.5 minutes. Now they can say yes or no, but at least you provided that option. And I find that often people take this option because it's short. Let's have a look at some life so you can see how this works in real life.
My name is Sean. Sean? And it's Anna-Marie. Marie, isn't it? Anna-Marie. Yeah, nice to meet you. Where from? South Africa. South Africa? I should have noticed that. Guys, this is the latest thing. Most people really enjoy it. What we do is ask you 10 quick questions. Give you a score, analyse it. For about 6.5 minutes, I'll give you the best definition you've ever heard of Christian is. Here's the first one. Let's put the glasses on. So, let's see what we're doing. Okay, first one. I give the charities. 5 as always. 1 is never. What would you give yourself for that? Number 4. So, yep. That's why you're giving out. So, yeah, I'll try that. Number 4.
Okay, we're here 2 doors down from my place. This is Barry and Lynette, and they've never seen the presentation before, so we're going to take them through and see what they think. So all I'm going to do, guys, is ask you 10 quick questions, give you a score and analyse it, and then in about 6.5 minutes I'll give you the best definition that you've ever heard of what a Christian is. Alright? First one's I give to charities, 5 as you always do and 1 you never ever would. What would you give yourself for that? 5? Fantastic.
So you can see just how easy it is to make a start and to tailor it to the person you're sharing with. One size doesn't fit all. So the G7 gives you the flexibility to use this in a variety of settings. Now let's have a look at our pen movement. All we do is ask you 10 quick questions, give you a score, analyse it, and then for about 6.5 minutes give you the best definition you've ever heard of what a Christian is. Here's the first one. I give to charities. 5 is always and 1's never. What would you give yourself? The final part of the introduction is to be aware of our body language. Now let's have a look at some skits on what not to do.
Wear clothes that are appropriate. Smell good. I sometimes get bad breath, so I carry mints in my pocket. First impressions are important. You never get a second chance at a first impression. Then, as you discuss things, don't invade their personal space. Don't be too intense. The more relaxed you are, the more relaxed they will be. Speak quietly, as though it was a personal and private conversation. And smile, because this diffuses tension.
I think you can see just how important your approach and the way that you come across is. These skits were based on a scenario where you're going out with the gospel to strangers, but the same body language principles need to be thought about in whatever setting that you're sharing the gospel, whether that's with a friend or neighbour, workmate, or whoever. Now you will notice that the very first action word is this. This is a cue to show them the G7. And if you don't show them the G7, then they'll wonder, well, what is the latest thing you're talking about? Are you the latest thing? After that, look back at the G7 and keep your eyes on it while explaining it. Now, you should have already memorized the words of the introduction prior to the session, and you've now just learned how to start in different situations, where to put your pen, and some body language issues to be aware of. So it's now time to give it a go and practice through the introduction with a partner. There is a list of presentation skills in your manual that your partner can keep an eye on, and they can tick the skills you do well and cross any of the boxes where you need to work on. Now, this will be really helpful to sharpen your presentation skills. A good presentation is simply a collection of smaller skills done well. Now, for example, you watch Tiger Woods or a really good golf player step up to the plate. It looks like he just grabs his clubs, it just goes whack, and it goes flying through the air. But they have practiced meticulously a whole lot of little different skills, put it all together into one fluid motion, and that's why they hit it so well. Because when I step up and do it, the ball goes over 2 fairways. So you can see that if you practice each one of those little skills, you can have a fantastic strike. Now, through these 7 sessions, we'll be learning and honing our presentation skills. How did you go? As ambassadors for Christ, we want to represent Him well and do the best presentation possible. But at the end of the day, we cannot and must not rely on our own presentation skills, eloquence, or cleverness when giving the gospel to people. God is sovereign, and we need to remember that. Even if we make a mess of our presentation, God's word will not return void. In our weakness, God proves Himself strong. You don't need to be an extrovert or have some special kind of personality or skills. God uses all types to reach all types. So be encouraged. Even if you mess up your presentation of the gospel, God can still use it for His glory. Now, I've personally fumbled my way through sharing the gospel on numerous occasions, but I know that God can and still will use me, even with my failings. But that's no excuse to be sloppy in our evangelism in the hope that God will pick up the slack. So let's be effective as possible by learning these principles and applying them well. Good presenters utilize a number of different presentation principles, and I want to talk about 2 that will really help. Think about a game show host. When they speak, they vary the pace and the pitch of their voice. They don't go, for example, "Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our show tonight. We are going to have a wonderful time." No, they don't do it like that at all, do they? And it's the same with you. Note that throughout the presentation, the words in italics are there so you can put life into your presentation. Another technique that a game show host uses is they don't have any silences. Because even if they say things in an interesting way, if there's silences, they totally lose their flow. For example, "Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our great game show. We're going to have a great time tonight." See how weird that sounds? Now, obviously we're not game show hosts, but we are presenters of something way more important, the gospel. So we want to do the best that we can do at presenting the gospel in the best possible way. And we want to utilize these principles, varying the pace and pitch of our voice and don't having any silences, keeping the presentation moving and flowing. Now we're at the point where we've asked that first question and said, what would you give yourself? Now, if there's a silence, what could you do? It's okay when we're presenting the gospel to control the silences because we're in control of the presentation. But when you ask someone a question, you can't control how quickly they'll answer. And if they take a while, the silence could become awkward for both of you. For example, what would you give yourself? See how awkward that becomes? So what can you do to maintain your flow? Well, you could explain the questions and all the ratings some more, and this allows the person a bit more time to think and removes that awkward pause. For example, I give to charities. What would you give yourself? There's a bit of a pause and you say, like World Vision, Salvation Army, Cancer Society. So name a few charities, and if there's still a pause, ones you never would, 5 you would all the time, 3s you sometimes would, 4 most of the time, 2 hardly ever. And by this stage, most people have thought of an answer and you've removed that awkward pause. Now explain the ratings to begin with, but don't keep explaining every question. This is patronising and tedious. Now, rapport building comments are really important. If you get a high answer, offer praise. If low, then you empathise. For example, I forgive people when they hurt me. Well, if they say 5, you say, hey, that's great. A lot of people struggle with this one. If they get a 1, you could say, hey, it's really hard to do sometimes, or hey, I struggle to do that as well. So every question is an opportunity to build rapport. Now, if you get a 1 for any of them, you could confirm that they've never done that particular thing in their lives. If they have at some stage, then they would get a 2. If they give you 2 answers, always go with the higher of the 2. Don't be stingy and go with the low one. If there's more than 1 person, you average the scores, and if more than 3, then you just do it with the first person that answers. Like Paul, we want to connect with people in order to share Christ with them, but we need to connect with them at the right emotional level. For example, I was out sharing the gospel when I came across a couple, and they were just a ball of laughs. They laughed at everything, all my jokes, which is amazing. And we were going through the questions and really connecting, and their emotional level was way up here. So we had a great time. But afterwards, I shared with a person, and her friend had just committed suicide that morning. So her emotional level was way down. Now, if I'd come up to her at the same emotional level as the previous people, hey, how you going? You want to help me out with something? She would have went, get lost, buddy, because she just wasn't in the mood for that sort of thing. But because I came gently and lovingly in the introduction, and I tried to sense where she was at and connected with her at her emotional level, she was fine. Went through the whole gospel message, and it was a perfect time to share the gospel, because she was thinking about death, thinking about her friend, thinking about, is there life after death? What happens? And so it was a critical time for her. So we don't want to put anyone off by the way that we come across. Try to connect with people where they're at. Now, ask their name at about question 3. Note the N next to the number 3. That's to remind you to ask their name. Now, if you're using the app, it'll automatically come to a screen that's got audience name on it, and you write their name in and hit next, and away you go. You'll have to put male, female, or group at that point, and then it changes all the he's and hers and they's to the right words as you go through the presentation. It's very clever. Now, after they give you a score, you could say, well, you're helping me out today. By the way, what's your name? Bob. Hey, thanks for helping, Bob. Now, always write their name on your G7, otherwise you're likely to forget it, and then it's embarrassing. And also, you want to ask how to spell their name, unless it's really obvious, because names are really important to people, and don't just assume the spelling, otherwise you get it wrong and you'll lose the rapport that you've built. Now, if you're using the Laminate and forget to ask their name at question 3, don't worry, just ask when you remember. It's just great to do it at question 3, as you can use it for the rest of the questions and the presentation. And if you haven't remembered by the time you go through the ratings, then you'll definitely remember, because you need to use it at that point. Let's have a look at some life and take note of how rapport builds as we go through the 10 questions.
Hi, we're just here at my home at the moment. I've got Tom here with me. Great to have you, Tom.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming along. Yeah, Tom's here to help us out. So Tom, just appreciate you coming along, and just wondering if you can help us out today. I'm doing something with church. It's nothing weird, so you can just relax.
Okay.
This is the latest scene.
Yeah.
Most people really enjoy it. All we do is ask you 10 quick questions,
Yep.
give you a score, analyse it, and then for about 6.5 minutes I'll give you the best definition you've ever heard of what a Christian is.
Okay.
Here's the first one. I give to charities. 5 as always, 1 is never. What would you give yourself for that?
I would give myself a 3.
3?
I'd say.
Okay. Well done. 3 is that one. I pray. If I'd be a pray every day. 1, you've never prayed in your life.
I'd say hardly.
So hardly? So maybe a 1 or a 2?
Yeah, 1 or a 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. About 2. Now, help strangers in need.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you definitely helping me out today. And so if someone asks, I need to push for the car or ask for
yeah, I'll always give a hand with
yeah.
something like that, yeah.
So I reckon about
I'd say a 4, yeah.
Say
maybe.
4?
Yeah.
Excellent. I read the Bible. 5 is a graze it quite often. 1 you've never held in your hand.
I look at it a couple of times a year. It's not a major thing.
Yeah.
Probably between a 1 and a 2.
Alright, we'll make that 1 or 2 then. Okay. I forgive people when they hurt me.
Yeah. That's often, yeah.
Yeah.
I often do.
So you find that.
Give it a bit of time and then I forgive them anyway.
Yeah.
Move on, move forward.
It's not easy sometimes, but.
Yeah.
Alright, what do you reckon for that?
Yeah, I'd say often I do.
So about a 4?
Yeah.
Alright, I love and help family members.
Yeah. Always.
Always?
Yeah.
Definitely fly for that. And I'm loyal to my friendships.
Yeah, always.
Yeah, very loyal person. And I put other people first when they need me.
Yes.
I can see that.
Stuff what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'd help them out.
So,
Yeah, I'd say a 5,
out
yeah.
of 5. Now, I'm totally honest with things I say and do.
Often?
Often?
Yeah, often.
Yeah. Now, I know if you gave me a 5, you'd be lying to me. So,
Yeah.
so we'll make that a 4, right?
Yeah, we'll make that a 4.
Right, cool. I see the best in people.
Yeah, generally.
Generally?
Often, yeah.
Alright, so what do you reckon for that one?
I'd probably say a 4 again.
4 again. Mate, you've got some really good scores here. You're doing quite well. So we'll add them up, see how you went. Now, we've got 5, 10, 15, 19, 23, 27, 31, 34, 36, 38. That's a very good score. Now, let me rate this for you. 49 to 50 is angelic, so you're not an angel, alright? 46 to 48 is certainly so I can't call you Saint Tom or Major Tom, if it's the name of the song many years ago.
It is, yeah.
According to this standard, you're a good person. That's pretty good. So at least you're struggling or seek help. Now, like I said before, I'll give you the best definition if you've heard what a Christian is.
Okay.
There's also a summary of the message in the Thai Bible in about 600 minutes. It'd be great to see what you think of it.
Alright.
I hope you found that helpful to see it in real life. Now it's your turn. Grab a partner and practice through the 10 questions and really try to build rapport as you go through. We'll sign off and see you next time. Remember to finish your manual and to do your BNS before next session.